Hey, everybody, welcome. And this is Carl Krauskopf on the CRE Playbook, your guide for deals, strategies, and tactics on leveling up your commercial real estate and multifamily game. Today, we are joined by Katy, who is an absolute shark when it comes to the legal space in all things land use in the Seattle Puget Sound market. I have worked with Katy countless times. Absolutely love the expertise that she brings to the field. Super valuable partner, and really excited to have her on today's show. Again, Katy, thank you for being here and welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, as I'm sure we're recording this right now in December of 2023, and we're going into the holiday season. Really excited about that. Also, really excited that we've had a really mild winter, at least seemingly so far. Weather is quite pleasant. Before we started recording, I had mentioned that it looked like you were outside.
I
I was
am
like,
not.
wow, you are an absolute beast because it is what, 50 degrees
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not outside.
Well, maybe we'll get you a cold
Yeah,
plunge
oh my
tank after
gosh.
this. Well, anyway, again, great to have you. Would love to hear, kind of first off is, talk about your story, how you got into the real estate, how you get onto the legal space. You're an attorney. Tell us about, what type of law, what type of law you practice right now in the real estate space.
Sure. So I've been practicing since 2009. And I started out doing like criminal law and family law. And then I got a job offer in real estate, which at the time I just thought sounded so boring compared to criminal law. But the schedule was better. I had very young children at the time. And so I took the job and I just ended up loving it so much more than I thought I would. And then so we did a lot of land use stuff. I did a lot of CC&Rs, easements, short plats, full plats, title issue and review, stuff like that. Worked with a lot of developers, a lot of builders. And then when the code changed in 2018 to what it is now, totally changed how condos were done. And prior to that, not a lot of people were doing condos. My firm had never done a condo before because not a lot of people liked them. Even today, I'll talk to people who are like, oh no, I did condos in the 90s and I learned my lesson, and condos
Right.
are not the same now. So my boss at the time said, I kind of think we should learn how to do condos. And we were all very resistant. We said, that seems like a waste of time. We're busy enough. And he said, no, I think this is going to be something. And I want you to learn it because I was the newest
Of
at
course.
that time. And so I did. I learned condos, and it was a genius business move on his part because it just took off, as kind of everybody knows. And so at this point, I've probably done about 1,000. I did all the condos for that firm, and I do all the condos at my current firm, Dimension Law. And it has completely redone what can be done in the city of Seattle, and now surrounding cities are now catching on too, but especially somewhere as population dense as Seattle, it's changed how we can create property and housing for people at more affordable costs.
So what's unique about Seattle, the condominium process, rather than whether it's one of the neighboring cities or in a completely different
Mhm.
urbanly dense area like Los Angeles or Austin or one of these other big cities?
Yeah, that's a great question. What Seattle has, which differs from a lot of other jurisdictions currently in the area, which is going to change, and we can talk more about that later, but their building code allows for 2 accessory dwelling units. Both can be up to 1,000 square feet. It doesn't include, attic space or basement space or garage space. So you can really get some decent sized units on, just a
Mhm.
single family lot that has like one existing single family. Doesn't require owner occupancy, which some do. So that is not a prohibition to doing a condo. It's just kind of an issue you have to advise future owners about. But a lot of jurisdictions actually have in their code that accessory dwelling units cannot be owned separately from the principal structure, which Seattle also doesn't have. So what a lot of developers do in Seattle is they have a single family, maybe they add an ADU and build a DADU, and then they can sell all 3 lots separately.
Mm. Wow. So I can essentially go in as an investor, go and buy whether it's an existing flip the front home and convert. So tell me a little bit. Okay, so the condominium process versus maybe short platting. Why would I do a condominium as opposed to a short plat then? Because
Yes.
they sound similar, right?
Yes, they are similar in that they both involve a map and kind of dividing up the land and how it can be owned. A short plat typically runs through the surveyor. So not always, but usually surveyors will coordinate the short plat process with the jurisdiction. So a surveyor might coordinate with the city of Seattle. You go through a process that takes at least 12 months, usually, which obviously varies by project. And then once it's recorded, you have your separate lots you can sell. A condo does not go through the city. So your building plans would go through the city. So any building, just like it would for a short plat. So that part's the same. Building plans always have to be approved by the city. The condo does not. In the city of Seattle, there are a few jurisdictions who like to review the map prior to it being recorded. That's not super common. They don't have a very big say in anything, but occasionally I'll find a jurisdiction that does have that requirement. Seattle does not. So once my client has decided how they want to divide up their lot, whether or not they have approved plans or not, because approved plans are not always required, we just pick where we want the unit lines. I work with the surveyor, and because I have a background in land use, I know all the things to look for, because there's a lot that the city will catch on a short plat map that no one else would catch. Like, what about access? What about parking? What about garbage? I've done a lot of those, so I know what to look for. I can advise my client how to set this up so that it works for future owners. The condo process is much faster. I typically see them taking about 2 to 3 months. I've done them faster. They have certainly taken longer. The fastest one I've done was a week. I don't recommend it. It's incredibly stressful for me and my client, but sometimes it's like, oh shoot, Katie, these went on the market yesterday and I forgot that I need to
wow.
Yeah, I don't recommend it, but it's possible if your surveyor is fast enough. That's typically the part that takes the longest, is getting the map, waiting for edits, stuff like that.
Sure, totally makes sense. And obviously, you know, one of the big things in the development space that one of your biggest line items is going to be your financing and your holding costs. So the quicker you can get in, the quicker you can get out, then
Absolutely.
that certainly spells bottom dollar profit back over to the developer.
Well, and a lot of times what clients will do is they'll do the condo before they even have approved plans, as long as they have spoken to an architect and have a general idea of where this future, you know, let's say dadu is going to go.
Sure.
We can put down the dividing line, they can sell off the front unit, and then they can use those funds to invest back into constructing the dadu.
Nice. So actually, that's something I haven't done yet, is go in, buy a single family home, you know, really work with an attorney like yourself and draw out the map of, you know, this is where I want unit A, the existing structure to stay, unit B and unit C, based on, you know, logical things, right? How are units B and C going to get access? How, you know, again, things that you talked about with your experience in land use, trash, easement, accessibility, etc.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And a lot of times, a lot of the existing single family homes in Seattle are actually fairly small. So you might see like a 1,000 square foot house on a 5,000 square foot lot. And so one trick that I've had a lot of clients use is that when they go in for permits, they'll have the existing single family recategorized as the detached accessory dwelling unit. And then they can get permits to build a brand new single family and ADU, you know, in the back of the lot. Yep. So they're actually getting 2 new units out of it instead of just one.
That's great. And so actually that's something that I've considered doing myself. And for those that may not know, I've done I think 2 dadu builds with you as the condominiumization process. And they both have been great. Both usually generate anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 worth of equity with a dadu. Which is pretty fantastic. But if you can go in and recategorize the existing older home as the DADU and then build out the new larger, then you can most likely be generating a higher equity stake, higher return on that same investment, as opposed to keeping the main home existing home as the kind of single family, if you will.
Yeah, I have one client who's really good at finding single families that are on 2 underlying platted lots, because you don't have to go through any sort of subdivision process in order to get building permits on either lot. You just need to have them recognized. And so then he'll buy one house and get 6 units out of it. And so, he almost, I mean, he does other stuff as well, but he's done a lot of those. So
yeah, that's huge. I mean, I'd love to learn that one.
yeah.
That's exciting. So, okay. So we've talked a lot about land use, right? So single family into DADUs and ADUs. What about, one thing that I've spoken with a couple folks, a couple investors, one particularly down in Vancouver, Washington, about is more along the lines of condominiums, and instead of the SFR ADU DADU process, is more so going in and buying maybe townhome communities, maybe a community with comprised of fourplexes, and then condominiumizing those. Is there, obviously, there's risk underlying any real estate transaction. Sure. Do you see any major red flags with potentially converting townhomes and or other structures into condominiums?
Not any more than converting, say a single family into a condo. I've done that before. Clients have bought duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and your building is already constructed. So you might go in and rehab it a little depending on how old it is, but it saves a lot of time, obviously, and money. So then and the condo process is exactly the same on my end. It doesn't matter to me whether or not it's a single family and a DADU or it's a sixplex. Like, it's all the same. So the cost is the same.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And I know there was another multifamily deal, mixed use, actually, that I was working on. I want to say it was 2-3 months ago, where there was the consideration of that I had the listing broker didn't even propose it, was condominiumizing the commercial space off from the residential space.
Yes.
Where you can go and sell off the residential units and then keep all of the commercial, maybe as unit A or unit C, whatever. And running all 4 or all 3 commercial spaces as individual businesses, but as one asset itself, as one unit.
Yes. Yeah, you can do that. You can mix commercial and residential. I haven't seen a lot of those, but again, the process is very similar. Obviously, some of the restrictions you have for residential would be unnecessary in commercial and vice versa. I mean, outside of that, though, the process itself is the same.
Sure. Totally makes sense. Now, again, circling back to risks, one thing that, back in my corporate days of healthcare, one of the big things that my one of my leaders had impressed on me and our leaders and her leadership was around around risk. And so the big question was, don't come to me and tell me that, there's a huge risk in the world and the sky is falling. Quantify it, tell me a dollar size, and then give me a probability of impact, right? So what's the likelihood of something coming up? And then what's the potential dollar amount that we are at risk?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So all condos come with what's called the implied warranty of quality. It's created by statute, and it provides a 4-year warranty for all buyers. And it starts the day that buyer closes on the unit. So if for some reason you hold on to a unit for 10 years and because you're renting it out and then you sell it, that's when the warranty would start. You can't use it up just by owning it for longer. I mean, it covers basically the structural components of the unit. It has to be able to be used for its normal use. It has to be built in a safe and workmanlike manner. So when we first started doing condos, we learned about this. We warned all of our clients. People were very nervous because the prior Condo Act had not been super fair to developers. And so it wasn't clear when that clock started for the years that the buyer had. So what Wakaiwa did is it made it very specific. The clock starts the day you close. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, I haven't had a single client be sued under this. At the beginning, we would advise clients, just take $50K, from your profits and put it in an account so you're prepared in case something happens. But I mean, nothing's happened. No one's been sued. Occasionally I go in and I do some case research just to see if there are cases, because I haven't heard about any. I haven't really found anything yet.
Right.
And I think that's due to a couple of reasons. I think the main one being buyers don't know they have this.
Sure.
So I think they have this warranty. We're not required to disclose it in any of the documents. It's just created by statute. So that's one reason. And two, a lot of my clients provide express warranties, like builder's warranties, 210 warranties. And those are provided to the buyers. They get the packet of information. They see the 2 years or the 1 year, and they think that's what they have. So when that time limit is up, I think they just think the rest is up to them. A lot of people are nervous when they do this in Seattle because the existing single family, if they're keeping it and reselling it, might be 100 years old.
Absolutely.
But it just, I mean, like I said, so far, it hasn't been an issue. If for some reason you had an existing single family and it had a leaky roof and you weren't going to fix it before selling it, if it's an issue at the time of sale, we can do a PSA amendment to include in all the purchase and sale docs and just say, hey, there's a leaky roof. We're not, going to cover this under the implied warranty of quality. So this is a heads up that it's fully your responsibility from here on out.
Now, would
Again,
you have to outline every single thing, or like, what about the potential for unforeseen issues coming up, i.e., obviously we know this 100-year-old, or let's be realistic and say the 70-year-old home has galvanized pipes, galvanized steel plumbing pipes. And, the buyer, the seller know that at the time of transaction, there's no leaks, there's no issues with it. But 2 years into owning it, all of a sudden those galvy pipes burst, as they normally do, cause flooding, cause damage. Is how does that, how could a situation like that be mitigated? How could the risk be mitigated on the front end of that?
Yeah. So in order for something to be accepted out of the implied warranty of quality, it has to be an actual issue at the time of sale. So in that scenario, you would not be able to. That being said, I have had clients who just want to list things to be accepted out in a PSA addendum just because they can.
Sure.
And I tell them, like, a court probably won't uphold this if they're interpreting the statute the same way I am. If you want to have the buyer sign it, you can. I don't think anything bad is going to happen. I just don't think a court will enforce it. So if a client wanted to, we could. Also, I don't know that pipes would necessarily be included in structural issues.
Gotcha.
I would be
probably not in structural.
Yeah.
No, you're talking more foundational, more
exactly.
Structurally load bearing roof, window, and or framing.
Yes.
Got it. No, that totally makes sense. And I think that helps, mitigate, or again, quantify and mitigate the potential risk of an adverse impact happening. So, I think for those investors that are going out, exploring the DADU, the single family development, I think certainly something like this could help reduce that impact, reduce that risk to you as you explore those options here in Seattle. Yes. Now, obviously, you're a practicing attorney here in Washington State, so you don't know you don't necessarily know any of the other jurisdictions in other urbanly developed cities outside of the state of Washington. But what would you say to another investor who might be out of state, who lives in Austin, who wants to, who has a large plot of land that's, within the city limits and wants to explore? Where would somebody like them start off to see if this is an option within their jurisdiction in their state?
Yeah, I think first I'd check with the city. So assuming, like you said, they're within city limits, just go to the city of Austin, planning website and just search their code for condominium, because a lot of city codes don't ever mention it. And if they do, it's 1 or 2, 3 times. It's very simple usually to do that first step on your own. Most codes, again, for big cities can be searched. I guess some of the smaller ones, you might not have that capability, but a city as large as Austin should. From there, you would want to search the state code as well. Now you probably could just reach out to a planner in Austin and say, hey, I see your code says this, this, and this about condos. Here's what I'm thinking. I'd love to know what my options are. Do you know that? I would not base any decision solely off what a planner says, because often they don't know. And a lot of times they don't have to, because it doesn't go through the city and they only know the city code. So they might have an idea, though. They might be able to point you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, you're going to want to at least speak to an attorney who can, who practices in this area, who can give you good advice.
And what would the best title of this type of attorney be? Land use attorney?
Yeah, you would. Well, unfortunately, I have heard that because condos have become so popular, there are attorneys who don't have background in land use who are like, I could do condos, and have started doing condos. And I've only heard bad things. I've had to fix some of them. They don't know what to look for because they don't have the land use knowledge that just comes from working in it for a while. So unfortunately, that's not always a good indicator, but
right.
Yes, you would want them to have a background in land use. You would want them to ask how many they've done, like them personally, not their firm, because there might be one person who does a ton of condos and then the other attorneys are like, oh yeah, we've done 500. No, but how many have you done? Like, that's the question to ask.
Yeah. One versus 499.
Yeah, exactly. Which that happens. So I'd want to know how many they had done and what type they were, because if all they've done is high rises that have 1,000 units, that's a lot different than if you just want to add a couple accessory dwelling units. Not that they couldn't do it, but their advice might vary depending on what they're used to. I think also when you search condo attorneys, you're going to get a lot of attorneys who only assist HOAs. So after everything has been sold and maybe the buyers have an issue or they want to amend their documents or they're fighting over parking, a lot of them will only do that rather than the creation of a condo. So that would be a good question to ask.
I like it. Those are great questions. So this is great. Condominiumizing properties here in Seattle. Absolutely love it. Short platting, does take quite a bit more time. But certainly if you can find those lots, whether they're double lots, or oversized lots within city limits, you can certainly create a ton of value out of that, right? So splitting if you do find yourself in those circumstances, double lot, going through the full short plat process and then condominiumization, or is it?
I mean, you can. So depending on what the underlying configuration is, sometimes clients do an LBA or something to adjust the existing lot lines. But a lot of times you can just have the lot recognized through the permit process. So it doesn't actually add another step.
Nice. And one would find that on your county assessor's website,
exactly,
plat map, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah. King County thankfully has, I know King County here in Seattle it's a beautiful interactive map system. Some of the other counties don't have quite as
they're not so nice,
quite as robust.
Yes.
And obviously I can't speak for many other states, but Washington has some good technology there. Well, great. I know we're just about out of time. We've got our 3 questions coming up, but before we get into those, Katy, anything else to add for the listeners relative to anything that we talked to today?
Yeah, I would say that there's been some pretty exciting developments in laws that have been passed. So there were 2 new House bills that passed earlier this year. I actually met with the state rep that kind of was the force behind them. He's had a background in property, which you don't see a lot in the House, or I think maybe in politics in general. He's a property manager. So he really is kind of on the side of the developers and just understanding what needs to be done. So while these bills are a watered down version of what he initially proposed, he's still working. He has so many other bills, excuse me, that he wants to get passed. And so what that means is in any city in the urban growth area within the next year, whenever they're set to update their code, which is based on a schedule for every city, they will have to allow 2 accessory dwelling units for any lot that allows a single family unit. And they can't require that they all be owned by the same person. So this will change a lot of cities. For example, Bellevue, you can't currently separate accessory dwelling units from single families. Renton, SeaTac, there's a lot in the area. And so this will change that. So Redmond, Woodinville, I mean, there's just so many areas. And then there was another bill, House Bill 1110, that passed that actually takes it a step further. And so for cities within certain that have certain population ranges based on the 2020 census, I believe, it allows up to 6 units
Wow.
depending on a few things. So if you're in one of those cities that has over 750,000 people, then you can do 4 units per single family lot and 6 units if you're within a quarter mile of a transit stop, or you add a affordable housing unit.
Sure.
And there's requirements for like the affordable housing unit has to be basically the same as all the other units. But it's going to change it drastically. I have clients already snatching up properties in Tacoma and Redmond and Bellevue, and they're ready. They're already building. I know one guy, I think he's built 19 dadus just in the past 6 months.
Oh my heavens. That's great.
Yeah. So definitely look at that. I think if that's something anybody is ever interested in pursuing a condo somewhere, the first step is to just send your title report to an attorney, because there could be things in there that bar you from it, especially in the city of Kirkland. A lot of the underlying plats have restrictions. I don't see it many other places, but I did have a client who bought a lot of property in Kirkland, some $80 million worth, and their attorney did not advise them of that. So
no.
Like 75% of them have those restrictions. So we're kind of pivoting and trying to get some of them removed, but save yourself the
You can only do so much.
Attorney. Yeah. Title review is very fast. It usually takes me a few minutes. So it's worth it.
Good. Well, yeah, totally agree. You know, anytime that I've worked with yourself and or any other title attorneys, they've always paid for themselves multiple times over. In cost savings, you know, one that we worked on a couple months ago with that landslide covenant in downtown Seattle, getting that abolished. That was a huge value add to the end value of our property. So was super excited about that, and really highly recommend working with attorneys and the ones that know what they're talking about.
Yes.
That's a big one. So want to pivot and talk about the 3 questions that I ask every week of our guests, talking about physical, talking about mental, and talking about financial, the 3 topics there. So first, Katy, you know, what's something that you do that you love doing to help keep you physically fit, physically active, and just keeping your brain clear?
Yeah, I think for me, my physical activity so depends on like my mental health and like where I'm at. So sometimes it's weightlifting, sometimes it's like walking around the block with the dog and the kids, you know.
Nice.
So that varies a lot for me, especially depending on the season. Like I really don't like cold, so I'm never going to go just like wander outside. Like my husband loves to hike. So any random day, he's like, I'm going to go hike 14 miles. I'm like, yeah, you're crazy. I'm never going to join you on that endeavor. But yeah, so I feel like mental clarity is probably the most important thing for me. And that kind of dictates how I do the physical stuff.
Sure. Totally makes sense. And to piggyback off of that, what's something that you do to keep yourself mentally clear, mentally agile?
I think having a counselor is just so vital, I think, for so many people. So I've been in counseling for 10 years or something. And I just, you know, I don't know, it keeps my head clear. I think it helps. I listen to some really great podcasts, like the We Can Do Hard Things podcast is my favorite. And that's like my own little alone counseling session every week.
That.
You know, I read books. So yeah, I like a lot of different stuff.
Love it. That's all. Those are 3 really great tools, techniques that you can employ to keep that mental head game clear, to keep the physical space clear as well. Last question is, financially speaking, you know, what's something, is there a lifestyle? Is there a certain financial dollar amount? What's driving you to continue doing what you do in the real estate investment space, as well as the in the law space?
Yeah, I think for me, it's very easy to get sucked into like making as much money as possible. And I can't run that rat race anymore. And so that's one of the reasons why I left my last job. I just needed a little bit more peace and less hectic in my life. And so my new firm is very much on that same page, like work-life balance matters to them. And so I just want to make enough to like support my kids so that they can do all the things they want to do. My daughter dances. My son is now into all the instruments. Like neither of those are cheap hobbies. And so I do need to make enough to support them so that they can pursue those. But really, I really love my job. I like talking to people. I like problem solving and helping them. And so if I can do that kind of without being overwhelmed by having too many clients and too many projects, that's ideal for me.
Love it. I think those are really great goals. I think loving what you do is, obviously from our interactions together, I can tell that you love what you do and you're passionate about it. I think before you even said it, problem solving was the thing that I knew that you were passionate about doing and that you're really great at doing. Coming up with creative solutions to unique problems.
Yeah, I mean, I use that so often. I didn't really think it would be as big of a deal in my job as it is, but I do it a lot, actually.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I think problem solving is one of the most underrated skills that that a leader can have. Great. Well, Katy, I think we're at time. I appreciate your time today. This has been super informative. I am going to go out and I'm going to go look for some Dadu land and I'm going to go condominiumize. Actually, we've got a property out in Wenatchee that we need to condominiumize.
Nice.
Anyway, and hopefully sell those out to individual homeowners as opposed to renting out all 6.
Yeah.
So anyway, where can guests contact you if they want to learn more about the land use condominium processes here in Seattle and or Washington State?
Yeah, I'm with Dimension Law. So our website is just dimensionlaw.com. You can email me, which is just katy@dimensionlaw.com. And my name is spelled Katy, not IE. That's a mistake sometimes people make. So yeah, and I know, so I got married last year. My last name changed from Dackene to Sweeden, and I was known my entire career as Katy Dackene. So if that's how you heard of me, I still go by that also. So it's fine. I'm not 2 different people.
Katy Dackene for some reason just rolls off the tongue nicely. And I still appreciate your signature line item, but no problem. Katy, I'll have that email and the website in our show notes, and would love for our guests to reach out to you and get all their condominium and land use needs met. And anything else, right? We've worked on PSAs and other contracts together. So there's certainly a lot of other stuff that you can help with in the real estate space.
Definitely. Yeah. My firm actually has a huge evictions team. So I don't do that, but that is a very busy part of our firm, along with like estate planning and nice. Probate and trusts and stuff. So
awesome. Well, good stuff. Katy, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening and joining the CRE Playbook, your guide to deals, strategies, and tactics. Thanks everybody. Thank you, Katy.
Bye.